Okay, well, I'm gonna have to do the old time travel thing. Press the pause and rewind button. As I say, you shouldn't say too much because it's always when you're out of the room you say some of the most profound things, and I find like words. You know, I love my words. They're like magic, man. You know, all these magical phrases. They're only simple words that I'm using and mostly repeated, but the context and the meaning give it its power. And you were saying something, right, I'm going to rewind right to what you're saying about Dune and that test of character. So what are you saying about this book that you're saying, Dune? Because, you know, like I say, to me, I know what you're trying to get at, that, you know, the kingdom of God. And if you get right with that, if you recognise and learn to recognise what these things are, what this state of being, what this emotional intelligence should be, what this common sense, this conventional wisdom that we can apply, you know, it's a very real thing. It becomes tangible in a way that faith becomes tangible. The substance of things hoped for and believed in, yet cannot be seen, yet can be achieved and attained. You know, it's like hope. Why do people have hope? Because they recognise that if they change their behaviour, their thinking, their actions, then the things that they want to appear in their life can actually be manifest.
Oh, there it is.
Fear is the mind killer. Alright, so this is the scene, right, where in June he's got
yeah.
the young prince. Turn up a bit.
You know it must be done.
Your Reverence. What does she fear? What about my father?
So the young Paul Atreides has to offer a test of crisis and observation, as a test for humanity, rather than just being a mere animal. And that's what we have in life. It's a series of crises of which God is the observer, and we ourselves are the observer of ourselves in a crisis.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not just how we act in the crisis, it's how we reflect on the whole.
So does the consciousness that we have allow us to almost objectify our own behaviour? Sometimes in a negative way, you know, like, I didn't do that, I'm not responsible for that, my actions didn't cause that, when clearly they did. And that's the narcissistic separation from the empathy that we should have, but we've been trained not to have. Because logic is deemed more important by certain secular groups of fanatics in terms of their thought process.
Watch it. Stop talking for a second.
Alright, so she's going to chuck him in the neck with the...
I hold at your neck, the Gondrabar. This one kills only animals.
Are you suggesting a duke's son is an animal?
Let us say, I suggest you may be human. Your awareness may be powerful enough to control your instincts. Your instinct will be to remove your hand from the box.
So your awareness may be powerful enough to control your instinct.
You die.
Is that the emotional intelligence we were talking about before?
And it's
Well, do we have the capability to override behaviours or don't we?
now.
Is man just a pre-programmed automaton? He doesn't think about and reflect upon causality, the effect of his own actions.
Silence! Silence!
I must not fear. Fear is the mind killer. And fear is the little death that brings total obliteration. I will face my fear. I will permit it to pass over me and through me. I must not
Fear flesh.
I feel my speed. Death brings total obliteration. I will face my
Flesh.
nothing of fear. Fear is the little death. You must not fear. Fear is the little death. I must
child ever withstood them. Take your hand out of the box and look at it, young human. Do it. Same by nerve induction. A human can resist any pain. Our test is crisis and observation.
I see the truth of it.
Could he be the one? Maybe. But will he be ours to control?
Huh. Alright, pause it there.
Yeah.
Because this is, again, the same system of knowledge and the way it comes to us through the totalitarian tiptoe that we're talking about, where people become accustomed to a set of ideas almost being given to them, and they accept it as their own in many cases. And I think there's always a danger in being swept along with the tide, swept along with the fashions, and being led, you know, over the edge of a cliff, as it were, through following behaviours.
The way I relate to that little episode there, in terms of God being a factor in life, series of crises and observation which God makes, there have been times in my life, as I understand it, where I have been subject to certain crises, and if I'd have thought about things in any different way than I would have done, God might have took me out of the world. So at each stage, I've been found worthy to continue at least for a little bit longer under observation.
Well, that's one way of looking at it. The very objective way of looking at one's own life, third person, taking the viewpoint that God views us and that we can translate.
That God is an indwelling spirit, that God lives.
Yes.
I'm not
But we
shy
can
of that.
translate our own behaviours to
understand
an
ourselves.
external source in order to better view the game, to see the chessboard and how the part we've played in that game has affected all the other pieces. You know? Having that viewpoint, being able to translate, as it were, into a God's eye view more than a bird's eye view.
Yeah, that's what people will approach, that level of understanding.
Or overstanding. That's why I say overstanding.
Inner standing.
Yes, that too.
That too, that more.
But it's always seen as that. But I think many of us, because of maybe our training and the way we have seen a physical life and our finite capabilities, will look at things as, oh, that's higher, that's above, the heaven is above me.
Inner standing.
It is that too.
No, it's that more. The kingdom is within. It's an understanding. It's an inner standing.
Yeah, but I use that in relation to what others may perceive of their particular power over me.
Use the Leicester concept.
No,
which is fair
not
enough,
at all, not at all. It has its uses for that as well, but it's more about this preconceived notion that such a thing called authority, which literally translates as someone has wrote something down.
You get people like Mark Passy who's
Someone has
explained that monarchy, like the self-rule. I am in charge of myself. A very useful understanding. There must be.
The danger comes when that is translated to others. And I'll give you an example. It's like one who is not worthy to possess something. There's certain knowledge that's coming on the earth right now, the true form of the knowledge, that I'm having second thoughts about actually giving to people. And there's a reason why I'm having second thoughts. And it's because, is everybody worthy? When some people get a particular knowledge for free, without the groundwork, without the sacrifice, there is a disconnection, a disassociation between its moral value, right? That which you just said, that going through that system of trials must occur. Every hero, to use the hero's journey, Joseph Campbell, every hero must embark upon his own journey of understanding to reach the level of overstanding, which is to be over the average person's...
No, over themselves, not anyone else. You just try to
No.
conquer yourself.
Whoa, you're not... Let me finish. You think I'm talking about having a power over others. You have the power over yourself, so when others come to you and say, I have an authority and you must obey, you recognise that's some bullshit right there. That's some bullshit right there. You're over that. I don't need you to tell me the difference between right and wrong. I know this. I run this ship. I'm the captain of my own Starship Enterprise. I will do what I like. It's not hurting anybody, not breaking no laws. I'm not trying to pretend there's some laws where I must become a slave, because that's all it really amounts to better enable you to live your life. Because where is your moral compass pointing then? It must be way off. So instantly, if you're talking about authority being that which is morally superior, I have the morally superior ground, and therefore buzz off. Yeah? Do one. Jog on. You get me? It's about recognising that set of words there, in whatever context you're taking it, whether it be some idea that somehow a system of rules can be imposed directly on you. That really isn't how it works at all. It's the same as going to school. You can't just suddenly arrive at a set of answers without having first the training and being basically schooled. And it's like this idea of school, where did that come from? Someone must have discovered it for themselves. And is that the true path that we should all be following? You know, like the hero's journey, like leaving the Shire, coming out of that and you know, Lord of the Rings stuff. And on that is the journey of, some say, understanding.
The quest.
The quest of life, the purpose. You know, every day is a quest. A mini quest. But do we have a higher purpose? Are we trying to live better lives?
Are we seeking Holy Grail? The Holy Blood.
Are we letting
Vessel
people
of
guide
God.
and steer our whole life from cradle to grave with a set of their ideas? This is the way we're going to do it. This is right. This is what it is. Do you have time to stop and reflect on anything these days? Given the fact that the status quo, the way things are, is that the elite know there's only 24 hours in a day. They know that. That's basic knowledge. But they also know how to manipulate everybody else's 24 hours in a day. That's why money is so important to them. It is the measure of control. It is the how much you are valued for your time mechanism. And when the resources are actually worth more than you are, you know, the things you're actually going to get, which in turn you, I suppose, help to create. Because let's face it, none of those that tell us what to do create anything. They don't have that creation energy. When we recognise our own power, we recognise we're already doing it. We recognise that actually most people who do the job, like the mechanic, probably could do that job by themselves and work for themselves if they were freed from the shackles and the belief system that they must work for somebody else in order to be successful.
Yeah, but there's a difference between working for someone else, working for yourself, and working with and alongside others.
Very true. And yet we're always, I suppose, doing all three. But to what balance and to what value? What is the value of each
I'm
position?
hoping in time that the others will be understood as everyone.
When a person loves their job, I think part of that loving that job, or that career path, I think careers are more what people love. It's the value that they get back out of it. And money isn't always it. In many cases, money is not it. But you find some people that are probably actually the richest in terms of having actual money. It goes hand in hand with actually doing a job that you enjoy doing. Mainly, I think, because you probably try harder, you work longer hours, you do more for that, and if you're in that trade long enough, you'll find your success. But there's success to be found in everything. You know, from it is a good endeavour. From the cause is noble and worthy. You know, that's the quest. If we're trying to do something that is good for people, then yeah. I think that's why most things kind of exist in the world, that there's been an idea that actually this could be good for everybody. But are we ready? You see, with great power comes great responsibility, and the internet almost seems like to be a test of, well, we're giving you a bit of knowledge. What are you going to do with it? How do you approach others? You know, I've noticed that cause and effect. I've noticed there's a measure of responses based on how you respond. If you go at somebody with the intention to destroy them, they'll come at you with the intention to destroy you. Is that emotional intelligence? Is that conventional wisdom? Is that something Solomon would recognise and say, hold on a minute, I realise that if I send my soldiers to attack that city, he'll send soldiers to attack my city. Maybe I should stop sending soldiers to attack his city, then he, in turn, will not send soldiers to attack my city. Is that emotional intelligence? Is that conventional wisdom? Is that common sense? At what point do we begin to realise that a set of behaviour, and behaviour is based on character?
Is the common person, do you think, in any way an enviable position? Is the common person in an enviable position, or are they in shit street?
Common. By common, do you mean
In the same
those
sense
that
as,
are
in the same sense as common sense?
in aggregate, the majority?
It's common sense which can lead us through.
Are you talking majority?
Because if that sense was so common, that would be getting somewhere good. Then yeah, we'd be getting there because that sense would be in common.
I don't think it is. I think it's rare these days. I think it's valuable,
You
like
think that common sense
like
is rare?
diamonds.
You think common sense is rare?
I think
Maybe
The
it's
re-
the,
the reason we-
maybe it's the rare sense, not the common sense. It's the rare sense.
Yeah, it's the rare sense.
It's
but it is common to the fact that it can be in all places at all times. It has a common denominator. It has a common thread, a common causality system that backs up that particular circumstance being able to be manifest.
What is so good as about common sense?
What is so good about it? Well, I've just been talking about
Where
that.
does it lead?
It leads ultimately to prosperity.
Does it? So prosperity.
Life.
So prosperity is
Life.
Is commonly shared, and most people have prosperity and love and happiness.
The aspiration for these things are commonly shared. What is not commonly known is that you got to get up in the morning and work hard at the truth.
It's not necessarily.
You got to work hard
not
at
necessarily
being
working
good.
hard either.
It's harder to do good than it is to do bad. The world is full of these temptations, you see. And this is why power corrupts and absolute power corrupts absolutely, because, you know, when there are no checks and balances, no measure of control over those that are given this so-called authority, they decide what is good or bad. So their God, their belief system, the way they see things, becomes the way that others must also see things. Does that really make any sense? Is that what people are striving towards? To find somebody else who's able to tell me what to do better than I'm able to tell myself? Or is it a case of, well, actually everybody knows what they want to do, but we've got these invisible shackles that more and more people are becoming aware of that just limit our experience of things, access to the resources that give us what we want, what we need. But has that condition always existed because traditionally in the past people have been wayward, have had no value system, have been barbaric, have been selfish and me first, and maybe for the first time there's a glimmer of hope where, because there's enough of us realising that actually good people are not alone, and that good will always triumph over evil. And by that I mean, if you was to talk about what is the conventional wisdom that we should be doing, caring and good will always win out evil. Because it's in our nature to want to preserve everything. Because we see it as all good. Because it is in fact all good. That's the nature that God created that said should be praised. It's a great thing. It's a testimony to the greatness of the Creator, the Most High. Because I'll tell you this, in my journey I've realised that there are many gods. Some of them translate to a metaphor for the behaviours and lifestyles of those who represent, shall we say, aspects of the living God, so that we can understand something or overstand something, so that we come to know something like the substance of faith, and we can make it tangible for a moment, so we can frame it in our mind and almost for an instant see a glimmer of the greatness of the wisdom of God, the wisdom of truth. Does that make sense? What I just said there. We're creating a framework for behaviours that are an internal, like you say, way of regulating behaviour, regulating your ideas, your actions, your behaviour, which in turn we call character, don't we? The character of a man or a woman is such that it helps to determine why they make a particular decision. So if, let's say, they are this traditional selfish with a small s, selfish person, me first, not valuing anything but self, even to the detriment of others, which then we have a new word, we call them people narcissist, psychopathic. But it's just a way of describing the shades of grey that eventually lead to the darkest forms of behaviour. And I use that metaphorically. I don't mean anything about the races of man. And again, people will stumble on that, won't they? They'll find a sticking point in that, they'll argue about that, because their mind is not really ready, as it were, to have a sensible discussion. Because where they're coming from, you see, in their life, they're currently stuck on that mode, that colour is everything. I had this discussion the other day with somebody, forget who it was, but basically the premise of the discussion was that for many black people, I see that they're stuck on the idea of race as a very fundamental part of their existence. And I can't say it isn't, but at the same time, you don't really hear the Chinese going on about, I'm Chinese, and because I'm Chinese, this, that, or whatever is happening, or has happened, and you know, why are you picking on me, man? Or I'm Indian, and you're picking on me because it's just that, or I'm Irish, and it's just because of that, and let's just have, you know, a hang-up about everything. Because let's face it, it's easier than actually going out and changing that situation, isn't it? It's easier to say, well, the reason I've not done A, B and C is because they're racist. Okay, racism does exist, but
Well,
does that really stop you from doing what you need to do?
What you're talking about, if you're talking about people of the diaspora, because you're not talking about Somalis with their same
No,
sort of
no,
origin.
not
You're
at
talking
all.
about people of the diaspora.
Not at all.
The way I understand it, not being funny, but they're the people of Israel of the Bible.
Mm-hmm.
They've always been a peculiar people.
Stiff-necked.
But what they should remember is that Israel has always been a mixed multitude. Yeah, a lot of us would pass for Egyptian.
I'll just say, in
But it's a
today's
mixed
day
multitude
and
then
age,
and now.
today's day and age,
Yeah, they're the core,
there is,
they are the core of that old biblical Israel,
'Cause-
who God will use, funnily enough, to change to help bring people back to God.
Mm-hmm. I mean, as
That's
third
how I
and fourth
understand it. So, of
generations,
course,
we're now asking these. Well, they're asking the same
If they're
questions.
emphasising the black aspect of it, well, yeah, but they're still the people of as I understand it, the people of Israel of the old Bible. No other people have had it so hard. I'm not being funny, but they have had it kind of harder than most. In terms of racism, every other race would look down on them. It's written so.
Well, let's look at the tangent of world leaders for a moment. Within black leaders, Martin Luther King, for example, there he stands, predominant in history, said many great things, many true things, many profound things.
And in the history of Israel,
When did that occur? That occurred.
Moses
that
and the Joshua.
Yeah.
Those
That
people
occurred
stood
at a
up for
particular
righteousness
framework
and
of
good.
time.
But most of the generation had to go.
However, these days we've got a million Malcolm X's, haven't we?
Have we?
A million Malcolm X's with the accessibility, I suppose, to a world stage via the internet. And if it's meaningful, if it's potent enough, if it's powerful enough, that may just resonate around the world. You know? But sometimes the concept is deep, sometimes it's shallow, and I like to soundbite. I like to get to things quickly, but I realise that sometimes what we're trying to do can't be done just that way, because we actually have to teach from the ground up. We've got structures that are pretty much built in terms of the human being is formed. They're already an adult. You know, the conversion process is a total strip down of what they call self, you know, a breaking down of the ego, which they themselves are the only ones who are able to do. They're the only ones with the access to those parts of their own psyche that must resonate and recognise the truth that they've always been looking for, if they've not had it, is being spoken to them. And that sharing of that idea is something that they can take for themselves for free. Wow. They can evaluate it. They can judge it. You know, and this is again what I think Judgment Day is all about. It's about taking the concepts and the precepts of what we call wisdom and really recognising, what is that? What is wisdom? Emotional intelligence.
Is wisdom,
empathy.
Is wisdom emotional intelligence? What books do you read? People will have their own conclusion as to what wisdom is.
What is common sense?
Is common sense so good?
Common sense, right, like you say, is not common. It should be called rare sense.
No, what you're looking for is actually called rare sense. Common sense is what leads people into all manner of foolishness.
Well, those are the senses. Those are the sensual things. Those are emotions. Again, you know, being fed on emotions. Totally bypassing, I suppose, any logic. What part does logic play? Why is logic seen as the best?
Emotional content. Logic can have an emotional content.
Emotional intelligence. That's what I'm telling you. If you're not balanced, that's not common sense or the rare sense. Maybe it's called common sense because it used to be common, but nowadays it's rare. So we have to kind of say it like that so that people wake up and realise your actions and your behaviour, your character, it's all wrong. It's kind of, it's not to the point where, you know, we have to just throw the baby out with the bathwater, but we just need to clean it up a bit.
But isn't that true of ourselves?
Yeah.
Like, so
Totally.
we ourselves are a work in progress.
And by that is the only true measure, I think, of actually exemplifying what was said there about, you know, we have the authority. You can only have the authority, to use that word, if you're actually doing it. If you're living proof through your actions, through your character, your behaviour, through your common sense, through your emotional intelligence, your ability to engage with others, to see the subjectivity in all things.
If you're the benchmark.
Yeah, I'll sign by it. Cookies need love. Like everything needs love. Everything needs love. You make this chair, it needs love. Otherwise it's going to be crap. And it'll have spiky bits and it'll juck you in your back. you know, and it'll be uncomfortable because they didn't care really. They just wanted to make some money, and you know, they lied to you. I want money, me, ha 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 ha. Oh, fuck him, he's got a crap jet. I don't care. I made an inferior thing because I didn't care. You see, not caring. Oh, but has a knock-on effect, you see. Emotional intelligence teaches you...
When you talk about love as some sort of higher principle, well, love can be involved in two different descriptions, love of God and love of money. Love is common to both. So...
Alright, let's apply what I just said there.
What makes
having love and care for the Most High God. Which means recognising all the...
money or self-good, happiness...
God is a huge concept to get. And therefore, you yourself are going to want to try to emulate that behaviour. That's the only way it can be done. You know, to read it alone and talk to others about it without living it, just giving lip service to the truth, and therefore it's not a true living testimony. What it is a bunch of hypocritical bullshit coming out. You know, this is what we see in religion, and this is what we see in politics. Hypocritical bullshit. What you're saying sounds like the truth, mate, and jangles on the emotional strings that people have connected through just hearing these sound bites from these people. But when you really get down to it, the actions don't really match up. Okay? What people are being asked to do is totally contrary to the truth that we know to be true. So how do we readdress that balance? You know, the numbness and the disconnectivity between those so-called rulers who rule only from an imaginary position where all things are imagined, yeah, and try to basically manifest their vision of what the world should be to suit their purposes, because there's plans beyond the plans that they're revealing to us now. We don't know the ultimate plans that they've got.
Yeah, I don't really worry about them so much.
Is that a safe position? Is that conventional wisdom? Is that looking at world history and saying there's people on this earth, and you know what? They're pretty good. And contrary to that, being true and honest, there's people on this world and they're pretty rotten bastards. Okay? Now what's going on? Do we ignore the fact that there's rotten bastards just because I like good people and only good people should be in my world? I know there's some bad uns over there, but they're not troubling me right now, so I'll ignore them until the day comes when they trouble you. And then, having created that bit of history, you know, Monday he was alright, Tuesday he was alright, on Wednesday these people that want to cause trouble, and they went to war and problems was caused. So, you know, even if it all ended by Saturday, you have that historical fact, that causality right there. Why do I feel like this? Causality. You did something to me. Is that important or isn't it? People just walk on with their lives. No time for that. The make money, me first, selfish with a small s. That's what that is about, isn't it? Now, when you're solipsistic, I only value what's going to make my life better. Fuck the neighbours, fuck everybody else, to be honest. Which is why you see people having affairs and doing all sorts of shit to their fellow brother and sister, because they don't see the value in what others feel.
They say love means never having to say you're sorry. But I think that's, as a conventional wisdom, I don't think it's enough. Yeah, sometimes love means having to say sorry a lot sometimes, but love also means wanting to hear that the other person's sorry a few times as well.
Well, you know what,
because doubtless there's cause
I think's missing from society.
Sometimes you're sorry,
dating,
sometimes you're not.
right?
But sometimes you
know what?
expect
You know what I
from the
think
other
dating
person.
helps people to do? It helps people to establish a pattern of behaviour where first you learn to respect somebody. Let's say, for example, in the modern translation, it used to be you would write a letter, and you would get into a habit of writing a personal letter. So it did not seem like a laborious thing or a hard thing to do. That later on, after the wooing period, when you got married, it would be more natural. It would be more natural because it is a repeated learned behaviour that you will continue to do those nice things because you have been trained in the wooing courtship stage.
Not necessarily.
Listen, man. Listen, you can have your opinion on it. This is my opinion on
But
it.
it goes on too long, man. Just sum it up.
I'm trying to say it. Okay.
Because modern relationships, to me, don't necessarily exhibit.
But you've got to have
Any sort of-
relationships
any sort
to
of
know what a
advancement.
relationship is. You've got to know.
But
From the
you've
inside.
also got to know when not to have relationships.
Hmm.
And what relationships really amount to. It's
But also
quite
not to be
selfish. It's
afraid.
quite selfish in its
Not to be afraid of the challenge and the trial of it.
relationships for the sake of relationships.
Oh, well, that's. You can't really say that because everybody is
No
born.
one wants to be
Everybody
alone.
is
No
born.
one wants to be alone. There comes time for
A
solitude.
mother and a
That can be
father is always required. I don't care what technology they say, they're talking about the stealing from the mother and the father, which is nature, which exists. Right? That powerful nurturing mechanism, which also involves character, it is irreplaceable. Okay, it is necessary. And when it breaks down, it does have an effect. It has an effect on everything. That whole world that we're talking about, rule the world, you only have one world and it's you.
Yeah, but
It's the subjective self and the view.
And no one's really got a handle of the true
Right.
relationship pattern.
Right. So to get to know God is to get in touch with your own feelings, your own heart, to know how that applies to others, to recognise that actually relationships are very important. Not just the relationship I have with my wife, but with my kids as well, and with my neighbours and everybody else. And I should, in order to have my relationship respected, I must respect theirs. I always find it strange that people, for example, look at other people's misses or husbands and want to be with that person and they get that person and they think that's a good thing.
Yeah, but
when in
that's
actual
one of the Ten
fact,
Commandments, isn't it?
wait, we know that's in the Ten Commandments and we'll come back to that as to the why. But in actual fact, when you think about it, what has that person gained? They've gained somebody who knowingly, willingly, in a relationship, does not value the feelings of the other person.
Enough to stay.
Well, enough to, not necessarily to stay, no one should say that they should stay,
Well,
but
not
in
to
order to be in the correct position where I suppose we would all judge that and say, well, that's fair. They've been by themselves. They've spent a period of reflection. They're not on the rebound. They're not desperate, like you said, in a relationship for the sake of being in a relationship, because being alone is worse. Therefore, they're not at ease with their self. They're not able to accomplish what they need to accomplish by themselves, recognising that their failings are probably quite vast, actually. I mean, many people, they don't even look at, for example, what this person represents to me. They'll go out to a club, for example, they might meet somebody. I mean, meeting somebody in a club, how has that become the norm?
Is it even the norm? What norm? Is there a norm?
Well, it's an urban myth.
It may have been a norm in the 90s or something, if you could say such a thing.
Yeah, I guess these days you meet people on the internet or you meet them in the supermarket or wherever you meet people, I suppose. But, you know...
Or at university, or at school, or at work, or wherever you happen to be. Or
I just think the adult playgrounds suck. Places where adults go to play. They drink alcohol in dark, dingy places where they, you know... And they have a freak out. I like music, but sometimes it's too loud. And it's like, that's not enjoyable. That's not enjoyable.
Well, this is the grumpy old man joke.
No, I like music loud, but
And
there's...
this modern music, man, it's not proper music.
No. I wouldn't say that. Some of it's really, really good. It's just, I know what I like. You know, and there's, again, being in touch with your feelings and empathy and recognising where certain subject matter is contrary to good, wholesome truth that leads to better ways of living, it's hard to write a song about positive living, isn't it? It's got to have some sensational sensualism involved. It's got to have the sex and lust aspect, because what really is being promoted there? What are we selling?
About the truth as you understand it.
Well, the truth is, sex is great, isn't it? It is.
Is it?
It is.
Or is it a trap?
It can be as well. Causality. You've got to know all the factors. It should be a lesson all in itself. I mean, forget biology and physics. That'd be the lesson everybody sit down and want to know.
I mean, you should.
What's the answer? It involves philosophy.
What was so good about going out?
Let's not being personal.
Come on, no, because everything's personal, and when you express an
I've
opinion,
moved past that. Let's move on to. We can talk about it
going out.
holistically.
You're saying drinking. You're saying it's not right by you. And what sort of person in your life, like as an example of the relationship breakdown, exemplifies the whole. That was so important that you'd rather fuck everything else out for the pleasure you got from it. What was so good about going? What's so good about drinking alcohol in public places?
You tell me. You got to think about all the aspects. If you are without responsibilities, most people say, "Shut the fuck up! I'll do what I like." That's fine.
But you have a
responsibility
over yourself.
Whoa,
if you go out with the intention of getting, I don't know, knocked up by the end of the night, I don't know, is that taking responsibility for yourself?
But again, you're talking about your subjective view being superimposed over someone else, like a religion, like an authoritarian religion. This is why you've got to be careful. You see, your interpretation of what one world government is going to be maybe different to somebody else's. Even if it's slightly different, it's different.
We're all in it together.
And that vantage point that they have, that person can probably only feel complete by doing the things that they choose to do, but within that, there's going to be their own mission in life. Is it our place to judge? Is it our place to prevent?
Needs to find completion in themselves.
Do we then become
God-sized hole?
Do we then become the government, the rulership, the person who intervenes?
Got to understand God before you're in a position to be authority over yourself, even.
Would you, for example, you see a 4-year-old child who's got no concept of the road and they're just about to run out in front of a truck? Would you intervene?
Of course.
Why?
If
why? No, wait. Not if. Why? Why would you intervene?
Because, yeah.
Is it right?
Because, yeah. Probably, yeah. Of course it's right.
Now, you talk about them tribes that don't even value a child, right? Because they're not of the age of ascension.
Oh, I'm not saying that they don't.
Now, had they
lived
in a place where
whether they have the full rights and recognition of as a socially belonging adult. Yeah. But
you see how it's contrary
to me
to our system of value.
My notion of the tribe is quite extensive, and everyone kind of belongs to it. Right. So, in terms of a isolated society, in terms of how they understand things, that's one thing. But I understand things my way as well, which is inclusive, which does want to see the ignorant protected until they learn better.
Right. Now, going back to system of living your life, the old tribes, and maybe where they live, they don't affect anybody else with how they're living their life, so that's perfectly fine. However, let's say in their world, a tiger comes out, and the tiger is just as much a danger to that child as the truck. And, the sense of awareness that child has, or the ability to defend itself. Should the adult, seeing that situation, intervene? Same question. Same kind of answer.
Okay,
you would hope.
Okay, let's imagine that caveman type society, yeah, where there's a saber-toothed tiger. Right, okay, you probably have the heroes of the society may be embodied in one individual.
Well, do they value the child, first of all?
Well, if in terms of, like, should that hero who is valuable to the tribe risk his life to save the child, well, that's what makes him valuable to the tribe. Not only is he strong, but he also has that caring. So, yeah, he's valuable to the tribe, and in terms of, like, logical choice, you'd rather see him, but that would make him different than what makes him so valuable to the tribe. A big, strong person who's a lion killer, who only looks after himself and isn't thinking of protecting the weak, or those weaker than himself, they're only so much value to the tribe. They may bring meat back to the people, but they'll be getting his cast-offs, because the meat will be primarily his. If, in terms of sacrificing that child to, like, you know, that same sort of culture, where you've got, like, a sacrifice to be made, and you've got the guy who saved the village on several occasions, he's shown himself, you know, with a compassionate nature. He's really valuable to the tribe. He's got knowledge, he's got skills, he's medicine, you know what I mean, he's intertribal communicator, you know what I mean. He's really, or you've got the baby girl who's...
Yeah, I get the point. So is the corporation,
which is more
is the corporation
today's
today's version of the one that's valuable, most valuable to the tribe? And is that why they get the say?
Well,
is that why they get to say, we're authority?
It's more like the big,
we're
strong
intervening
person who is in it for themselves. And the tribe is kind of like, yeah, he kind of like keeps us all in line, and we get to eat his cast-off meat. And he's good for the tribe in the sense.
But there's something sinister.
If there's any, you know,
there's something sinister about it, because he comes demanding things.
Warrior, this, that, and the other, and
well,
yeah.
let's look at it in its real sense, because when they come demanding what they demand, it diminishes from your position.
They're not the hero. Put it that way.
Can the man, for example, defend his own family from the intruder?
Don't go that one. That's time for you
I'm
to go.
gonna go with. Can the man, the modern man, defend his home from the intruder, as it were? Is he able to be the protector? Is that what his wife's looking for? Or does she actually see through all of that and realise that he's nothing more than a provider
I'm bound by my understanding of God, which only permits me to talk in a certain way.
Yeah, but you've got to recognise that the life you're living, the life we're living, ultimately leads to a place.
I've got to understand things how I understand things, which is, it's biblical. Can the strong man, you know, except he binds the this and that, you know, I've got quotations going on in my head about nearly everything. You know, you've got to bind this. Basically, I can't defend shit which God isn't going to defend for me. I can't. Whatever arms I take up to defend myself, if God's not with me, then it's doomed to ultimate failure. Then again, if God's with me, then I can prevail even without
it doesn't always need to be physical, does it? Because we're talking about sometimes the concept, the idea. Someone just comes to you with a concept and says, you know what, we're the government. We're the ones ruling the world with absolute authority. In order to do this, we require some of your substance, and you must just hand it over. Now, is that or is that not like when the school bully? But now he's just a bit more.
No, I mean,
he just uses words differently.
What is the image and subscription on the coin? It's like, what do you care for in this world?
Well, the thing is, your energy is your energy. No one has the right to demand that of you.
But God's
what's the thing of value here? The coin or the energy that it represents, and that it actually translates into work, which creates services and products that are necessary or useful.
Yeah, but you don't put your care into those sorts of things, really.
Do you have a care about everything or don't you?
You do kind of, but you don't over-care, that sort of stuff.
I think you've got to care about everything. You're doing something with your time. You do something with your time, it's important.
The things which matter to me are those things which matter to me. That's why. That's maybe part and parcel of why I'm not necessarily with someone. Because
I think it's a type of apathy. I think it's a
You think mine's a type of apathy?
Well,
to be honest, because I am kind of interested in how you understand me.
Yeah.
Of course I am.
Maybe that's the wrong word to use. It's a type of, like, going back to what you were saying.
You're saying I'm not.
Your
you're
God
saying
is
I'm
your
not-
God,
saying-
and to
you're
hell
saying-
with all
no,
gods.
you're saying, yeah. Is that
That's
how
a
you
good
understand
thing.
me? Is that how you understand me?
That's a good
Because
thing.
my God
Yeah.
is it is the God, as I understand it. It is
Yeah.
the God, and other people, everyone needs the knowledge I have. Yeah, okay. I don't seem to have done much with that right now, but do I really even feel capable? I'm not being understood. You've been with me longer than anyone on a more regular basis, but you don't really get what I'm. You certainly don't agree necessarily with how I understand things. And yeah, that's something for me to bear, because I understand it myself, and I've just not been able to communicate it. I can't lead the world into the kingdom of God, because how can I, if God, it doesn't just change me, so I can suddenly just.
Well, the world is
Communicate.
contrary, isn't it?
I'm contrary as well.
And
I'm
it's
contrary.
almost annoying.
I know in myself I'm not ready yet. But being around other people and being around their influences isn't necessarily going to be good for me.
Yeah.
Being around a woman and having to look after her interests, because that's what it entails, isn't necessarily going to be a form of selfishness. Is useful for me, because
Many people find themselves in a position
myself.
totally unprepared. They don't have the tools. They don't have the equipment to deal with that.
I am being prepared to do what I have to do in life.
Yeah.
That's how I understand it. And yeah, I don't spend too much time out and about doing stuff which is commonplace for people to get up to. But I am kind of there, even though I am to become common.
At the same time,
At the moment,
who the fuck are we?
I'm there. It's just me right now.
Yeah. At the same time, though, who are we? You know.
I am.
Is enough?
I am what we are to become.
I think it's enough that we can, you know, keep ourselves out of mischief, so to speak.
Oh man, we would.
Simple things are blessed
we would wallow
things, man.
in mischief, except
I
that
don't.
God had a leading.
Idle
Hold on,
hands are
hold
the
on,
devil's
hold on.
playground, I'll say that. If you don't have a mission and a purpose in life,
If you don't stand for something, you'll fall for anything.
Yeah, and it's a bit like, you know, the captain with no true destination. He might just be spinning the wheel round and round. You might find your life going in circles, not really achieving anything. You've got to have a destination. You've got to have vision and passion.
I learn stuff every day, which makes it worthwhile. I'm in training this week, but it's not necessarily the stuff I'm learning in there, which is useful. It's how I'm dealing with the crises, the personal, emotional crises, which every person faces.
That's the hero's journey.
It's every man's journey. Every man and
woman.
I was wondering about this the other day. It's like how I understand my path is maybe it's definitely been influenced by things around me, including human writings about such things. So I understand the Bible story kind of speaks to me, and it resonates with my understanding of things. It could be the Buddha story as well, except I've not been married, and I've not had kids. But for women, I was wondering, is my story relevant to them in terms of women have a difference to a human male, and must have a different type of understanding when it comes to God. It's like they have to learn to understand the highest feminine principles of God and be embodiments on earth, the avatars of that high feminine principle of God.
A couple of things I'm going to say there.
So it can't necessarily be the je suis story as I understand it, which, you know, that's the indwelling spirit. They must understand, as I have come to understand my own, it's like, for me, women have to understand the truth of themselves, which is goddess.
You know what? I think
there has
it's
to be a
not being
goddess
promoted
story.
because a lot of men don't like that.
There has to be.
You know why they don't like that? Because they can't really manipulate.
It's a goddess. It's not been talked about well in the Bible. But the Bible were people who, for the most part, tended to do the wrong thing about.
You know why it's not been spoken about
there has
well
to be.
in the Bible? Because again,
the true woman who is my partner will have come through a path which has led her to an understanding of herself being the avatar of the goddess principle. I can't necessarily formulate that understanding for them because I'm concentrating on my own story.
it all depends on your vantage point.
You see,
a woman
can
only a woman can really answer these questions, and she couldn't answer for all women. She could only answer for herself.
Because the same spirit is indwelling in each.
Yes, but in that sense, the same conventional wisdom, the same common
truth will apply. It will be universal in terms of feminine principle.
There are things we have in common, right? Causality affects us both. Okay, the male and female. Yeah, the king and the queen, the alpha and the omega. How do you reach the kingly character? How do you reach that character that is like a queen? You know? Today we kind of lessened it and we call it a gentleman and a lady, but it still amounts to a higher form of behaviour based on the character you've got. And if your character is that which resonates towards doing that which is good, that which is morally correct, and is superior to other ideas and other value systems based on the fact that it is a blessing, it benefits all, it gives prosperity to all, or as to many as it can give. Yeah? By that way of making decisions, we'll get a better lifestyle. But there are many problems associated with that. And one is the assumption that we know what is best for someone else. Truth and honesty needs to come out. People need to be able to discuss who they are and what they're about in a way that isn't seen as it's a problem. And I think people try to run away from that by the conventional ways that they date these days, which is to get blind drunk. And all that is blowing off steam.
Yeah, but
they're blowing off steam because they don't have the time
like I say,
to discuss.
all of that relationship stuff, to me, it's a diversion and a trap. Women themselves should be seeking
Not to me.
that goddess principle. Yeah, I know, but you, Jules, I'm not being funny, but I don't think you've really found my path. Women,
Is there something wrong with that? Because this is what I'm getting
Yes,
at.
there is.
Well,
There
that's
is.
where you're wrong. That is where you're wrong.
Because
you
you've
see.
got to find the path.
And the path is to
It's not
have
necessarily
acceptance.
relationships.
To have
Women
acceptance
women
of where
need-
people are
women
at.
need to find themselves in terms of the high feminine principle goddess.
I agree with that.
In themselves.
I agree
and
with
you
that.
can't do that by being with man right now. A woman has to exercise those
I believe
those
it's cursed.
cherished
I
values
think.
of chastity. Yeah.
Where's
Not
the?
just voluptuous.
You're talking about.
not voluptuousness.
This
we're
is
talking,
not.
We're talking self-control, self-restraint, not animalistic, considered. When it comes time to for a marriage relationship, then yeah, do it by
That idea, according
good,
to whom?
regulated behaviour.
That idea, according to whom? Because let's face it, we look at our
You
society.
jump in, you jump out.
Right.
You jump in, you jump out. That's all
That
modern
just
relationships
seems
are.
that
You
you
jump
don't
in,
have to be
jump out.
hostile with it. It's
It's
just a
just how
discussion.
modern relationships are. You can't really defend modern relationships, and by modern relationships,
I have not
I mean
defended it.
Everything since the garden. Basically.
I'm not defending it. I'm analysing it, and in analysing it, I'm going to give you some different comparisons. Yes.
Sex right now is not necessarily.
Whoa.
Anyway, it's Jules. It's time. I'm not going into big conversation about this.
Well, I like to end the conversation. Yeah. Right. Here's what I'm going to say. Right. Male and female. He created them both.
First, the kingdom.
Right, the kingdom is in us, both of us. The kingdom can't be unlocked by one alone. It's only by the true ascension, right? The true care mechanism is inbuilt, it's nature.
Yeah, but
you have to have.
without sex in them. You can seek what's best for them.
You got to be in a relationship to know what a
Yeah,
relationship
but
needs,
you
man. It
got to be
needs
in a-
care and maintenance in every department. To say I'm so spiritual that I'm not sleeping
until
with you
you're ready,
because
until
God
you're
has
ready,
said
you shouldn't
it's
be-
not the appointed time.
until you're ready, you
I
shouldn't
mean,
necessarily be
that's
with
the
a woman.
kind of shit. That's the kind of shit
That's
that
what
has you
sep-
by yourself for the
That's
rest of
what
your life.
That's what separates Jacob from his brother.
It's not that you can't woo and work for
Says
these things,
Esau.
but there's a massive difference
What do you
between
mean-
that and
what
not
do you mean-
doing
What do you mean
anything.
you've been waiting fucking years for gal, and then you go to a place and you've got to wait fucking years? Man, look at these
That's
girls.
him.
Look at these.
That isn't that-
You should be getting some of this.
Yeah, but
Yeah, I know, but I'm fucking bound. I can't act in any other way than what God sets for me.
I
can't.
know
I'm
it's
stuck in a
frustrating.
situation. Why don't?
However,
why-
I don't see women as the enemy. Far from it. Right? Christ used to talk to women a lot
in a way.
in a time when women weren't considered as having any value.
Christ had a bit of a flirt when he comes to the fountain. Pour some of that water. That's a marriage invitation for Bible people. Pour me, give me some of that water. It's like
Right. What is the importance of marriage?
Are you fit to be my
You
wife?
just said before earlier, women have no place, so to speak, being with men. They should just seek
No,
the
they do
kingdom
have a
of
place.
God.
Of course
I
they have
mean,
a
that
place.
is a
Of
lifetime.
course they have a
That is a
place.
lifetime.
No, it's not.
Everybody's
It's
at
not.
different
It's
positions
not.
in their life.
It's not for a lifetime. It's until they find what is true about themselves and about others.
But that truth's
Until
going to
they-
stop
until
being
they-
true later on in their
They
life.
can't find it when they're already with man and kids, and the man's not necessarily on the path, because then it's domestic problem.
Right, well,
and it's
what
hard-
I
it's
was
hard
about to
find.
say is that union, for it to work, for it to be considered holy, complete in itself, recognising
Be
itself.
holy
and-
before you enter into holy matrimony.
Right.
And be.
I'll
you've
agree
got to
with
be
that.
Holy. They've got to be holy matrimony. Otherwise, you're not ready. They're not ready. Certainly not
Right,
holy matrimony.
but we have 70 years on Earth.
So
And
take
let's look
time.
at that as well.
Take time.
And let's also look
Because
at the fact
it's a
that
shame
we're
to-
all born.
It's a shame to fuck it up in the first 20, then, isn't it?
Yeah, but we're all
Right.
born. And I'm not falling for this let's feel guilty Roman Catholic crap.
I'm not saying to feel guilty necessarily, but look, be honest about things. Just because you've done things in a certain way doesn't necessarily make it right.
Yeah, but you're not letting me finish, so therefore you won't get what I'm saying. I'm saying
Yeah,
date. I'm saying date,
Why-
and
why-
date doesn't
why?
mean sleep with.
Why date?
Why date? Because
These
it's
are-
about
these
communicating
these
with the
are-
opposite
these are
sex. If you don't know how to
it's not-
communicate,
it's about communicating in a certain way.
people have these political ideas.
It's all about hypocrisy of actorship. You're putting on an act. You've got to say the right things, not just anything. Not just the
Right.
things of your heart or
Right.
what comes first. You've got to say the right things.
Right.
You've got to do the right. It's wooing. It's a
Now-
lie. It's a lie. It's lying behaviour.
Right,
for
but
a
you see the
particular
way we
sexual
discuss
reward.
things, and
It's
some
very
could,
manipulative.
some could almost say this is an argument or disagreement, but I don't see it as that. I just see it as this is the position I'm coming from, and you're explaining the position you're coming from, and that's fine. And what we must learn to accept about not just ourselves but the whole world is that everybody doesn't agree. I don't know if you'll ever find two people that can agree on everything. Otherwise, they're not really being themselves. Are they at the same position in their life? Have they considered all the facts? Do they have the same knowledge? That interplay, that's the interesting part of life, isn't it? The making that agreement, the discussion, as it were. That's why they call it a discuss and a shun. To have a real one of them, yeah, you got to have some dissing going on, and some cussing going on, and some shunning of the idea, not the person. I don't like your idea. I'm gonna fix it up a bit. What do you think of it now? I've painted it blue. I don't like it blue. Put it back. It's this.
Yeah, but
You know
until
what?
your idea is ready, can you really share your idea? So
Why?
you've got to get your idea ready.
Why?
Because otherwise it won't be your idea.
Won't be
anymore.
accepted.
It'll be a mishmash between
Frankenstein idea.
what you've tried to formulate, what you've had to compromise, and something lifted straight from her, and probably loads of other people as well. Because if you're that sort of person, everyone will want to contribute to your idea.
Yeah.
So it won't be the idea that you started off with. It'll be something, and the original idea has been lost along the way. Not being funny, but that's how it is. Well,
Yeah, but you know,
mine's a little longer. Mine takes a little longer, but
I think
the
if you're
idea's
gonna
set
know
up,
what the idea is, you find that person, you know, that resonates. Because caring about someone isn't about, you know, oh, you've done wrong. You know what? I don't care about you anymore. You made a mistake. My child made a mistake. That got me angry one time. Is that sufficient for me to stop caring? Would people agree with that?
Yeah, but I'm not saying don't care. I'm not saying don't care. I'm saying
Is that not the point where you care the most?
What you've got to be careful of is relationships for relationships' sake, because society says you should be in a relationship right now.
But that's not a real relationship, is it? That is based on what they can sell quite easily, which is sex. Everyone's being a prostitute. You've got to work and you prostitute.
It's not just sex. It's think about things this way. These are the things that are important. It's like, well, I'm not being funny, but to me, it really is.
And the whole idea,
finding the truth with
the
God,
whole
that's
idea
what's
that you live in a
important
house that isn't falling apart literally by the second. So maybe you could leave it a little bit and not have to make some money and build something and repair something. But
actually, no.
ground rates and rent.
There are things which need repairs.
Rent.
And I do work, and even so, I'd still say God provides. Even if I do fulfil my self-obligation of trying to be useful.
We're forced to work for
You're not
the
forced.
man. You're forced to work.
You're forced to work.
Oh, no, you got a choice. You can not work.
You'll fucking no. It's not forced. People either make a choice to do whatever they.
Oh, yeah, to make a choice, work or you'll be homeless.
I
You
don't
know,
think it's as simple as
work or
that.
you'll have no food.
I don't think it's as simple as that thing.
I mean, that's been there since the Bible.
In every case, it's a personal story between them and their God. Because just as with me, I expect God to be with them as well. The indwelling spirit, which is conversing, communing, sharing their life with them. In every situation, you've got God with you in some ways, wanting to communicate, share understanding, you know.
I think this idea of God alone is one of the things that really mess people's heads up. God alone?
That's
what
who
are we?
That's
family, aren't we?
that's who you. That's what you would say with your mouth, if you have understanding. Yeah, God, at least for the most part. My part, very little, and I probably fucked up in several ways doing that. That is the way to speak about God when you have understanding. Of course, to be a bad God, yeah, and it was through my own efforts as well. That's not so humble. Because your own efforts were through the strength and the understanding which God has given you. It's all God. Everything is from God. Be humble. Accept that. You yourself, you can play a useful part with your own initiative. Maybe, and I wouldn't wish anything bad on anyone.
That's where
But
the
to me,
idea
with your mouth,
that
with
God,
your mouth, you would say something different, like, you know, if God's with me, then this or that.
yeah, but like I said, that's where the idea that many traditional Christians may say, well, I don't have to do anything. I'm a good person. You know what? God's going to do it all for us. Not recognising, actually, you want the world to change. Everyone is going to have to start doing things.
What is a good Christian to me when every Christian hasn't quite got the right concept of the message? Who's Ian?
Yeah, and again, we've got to be careful about who's the authority on that one. Because when someone makes a decision and says, well, this is the decision I've made and I think it's right for everybody and you just got to do it, and someone says, hold on, I've got a question here, I don't want to do it. Don't want to do it your way. I'm not hurting you.
Well, okay. Well,
I'm going to do this right now. What have you got to say about that?
What would Moses have to say to that person? Because that's the...
Or what would Jesus say?
Well, same way. It's like, I'm not being funny, but it's my way. Oh, no, tell you what, just go the Broadway, anyone by the Broadway, everyone's going over there, there you go. I only need a few
Well,
people.
isn't that the natural God?
And even these few people who are with me don't really understand me, so it's like, well, but something will, I'm still going to be the truth.
I mean, the God of nature is just going to decide one way or another.
My way, apart from the woman's way, which to me I'm kind of thinking, well, we have to find
So I just think,
for them as well.
right, there's one set of things that we could just say that is like nature-based. Opinion-based is another thing. But nature doesn't care about people's opinions, it just is. You know, and you can choose to ignore that.
Nature gives rise to people's opinions.
Does it?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
In a way, you could look at it as the universe is seeing itself through our eyes and every other animal.
Well, were that to be true, then everyone would have this conventional common sense, common wisdom.
No, but it's a multi perspective.
I think people have lost connection with emotion. And the reason they've lost connection with emotion is because they're scared of emotion. The reason they're scared of emotion is because there's so many heartless beasts out there lacking in emotion, having been sabotaged on their journey towards godliness and perfection, and basically hurt so much that they, as a defence mechanism,
feel
try to make themselves into the monster.
Emotion. And even if I'm not in a sexual relationship, that doesn't mean that I don't have my emotional issues, or even my relationship issues, which God gives to me to understand in my way.
I think everyone's got a relationship issue, you know, of some form or description. Even if they're quite happy in their relationship, there is a relationship issue always to be reconciled. Every day they have to do something. And there's nothing wrong with that.
To compromise what they'd rather do. To please someone else.
Well,
that's it.
The point is you should want to do it.
No soldier.
If you're doing that,
to fight a war,
if you're doing that, then is it right? If you're doing that, then is it right? Because that's part of the problem, and that's why dating is important. If people date, they will find people who are interested to them. Yeah. But I really think, you know, once people have what they need in their own life, they won't need rulership. You know, they'll just need access to resources because they've got ideas. Emotional intelligence, mate, that's what they need. It matters, man, it matters.